A Sunday morning like any other. The last Sunday of July arrived with a crisp morning breeze, slipping through the slightly open window of our white BMW X5 as we cruised toward church. The sunlight painted the streets of Greenwich in golden hues, the town still waking from its slumber. In the back seat, my son Ethan sat hunched over a thick book, his fingers gently tracing the pages of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire for what must have been the 5th time. His eyes danced across the words, completely absorbed, oblivious to the world outside. Michael, my husband, stole a glance at him through the rearview mirror, a knowing smile curving his lips. "Reading Harry Potter again, buddy?" he asked, amusement laced in his voice. Ethan looked up, pushing his glasses higher up his nose, and nodded with a small, shy smile. "Yeah, I was just reading about the Triwizard Tournament." Michael chuckled. "And baseball practice later. You ready to try that curveball again?" Ethan's face brightened. "Yeah, I practiced yesterday. Do you think Coach will notice?" Michael's pride shone through his expression. "Of course he will, kid. It's been getting better every time." As we approached the First Presbyterian Church, its towering white spire stood gleaming in the morning sun, a familiar beacon in our lives. Church had been our weekly tradition, a constant presence through the years. But on that particular morning, I had no idea that this simple Sunday would set into motion events that would change our family forever. We pulled into the parking lot, where my parents were already waiting. My mother, Patricia, was the picture of refinement in her tailored lavender dress, her signature Chanel perfume lingering in the air as she moved. Beside her, my father, Robert, stood tall in a navy blue suit, his sharp eyes scanning the congregation. He was a man of few words, but his presence commanded respect. Having built his own construction company from the ground up, he carried himself with quiet dignity. "Good morning, Rachel," my mother greeted me with an air of grace, leaning in for a brief hug. "Morning, Mom," I replied. She turned her attention toward Ethan, who had just stepped out of the car, still clutching his book. "Ethan, aren't you going to greet Grandma?" she prodded gently. He gave a small nod, his voice barely above a whisper. "Good morning, Grandma." My father reached out and patted Ethan's head, his touch light and fleeting. That was how he had always been, affection reserved, emotions carefully measured. Just then, a slightly battered Honda Civic pulled up beside us, and my sister, Linda, hurried out, her son Tyler trailing behind her. "I'm so sorry we're late," Linda called, her breath slightly ragged. Traffic was awful. Our mother's eyes softened instantly at the sight of Tyler. "Tyler, come here, sweetheart," she cooed, opening her arms wide. Tyler grinned, running toward her without hesitation. "Grandma," he cried happily, wrapping himself in her embrace. Since Linda's divorce 2 years ago, our mother's affection for Tyler had intensified tenfold. It was as if she saw Linda's struggles as her own failure, compensating by showering Tyler with extra love and attention. "Oh, my dear, this shirt looks wonderful on you," she praised, smoothing his hair with care. "I found it at Nordstrom and thought it'd be perfect for you." Linda beamed. "Thank you, Mom. You always know just what he needs." I watched the exchange in silence, a familiar ache settling in my chest. While Tyler basked in the warmth of our mother's love, Ethan stood quietly off to the side, his fingers fidgeting with the edges of his book. During the service, Ethan sat with a serious expression, his Bible open on his lap. But beside it, tucked discreetly between the pages, was his Harry Potter book. Occasionally, he would sneak glances at the text, his excitement barely contained. Meanwhile, during coffee hour, the church hall buzzed with friendly chatter and the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee. My mother, ever the social butterfly, took the opportunity to introduce Tyler to her circle of friends, beaming with pride. "My precious grandson has such a healthy appetite," she remarked, offering Tyler another homemade cookie. The ladies around her laughed in amusement, nodding approvingly. I noticed Ethan sitting alone on a sofa in the corner, his book open once more. He wasn't much for socializing, preferring the company of his fictional world. But what stung was how my mother barely acknowledged his presence. Michael, sensing my tension, placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. He didn't say anything, but his warmth was enough. Then, in the midst of the light-hearted conversations, my mother's voice rang out unexpectedly. "Ethan," she called, turning toward my son with an unusually pleasant tone. "Would you like to go to Universal Studios with Grandma and Grandpa next Saturday?" The book nearly slipped from Ethan's hands. His eyes widened, his breath hitching. "Really?" he asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. "Can I see Hogwarts Castle?" A rare, radiant joy spread across his face, a kind of excitement I hadn't seen in him before. My son, who had been utterly captivated by the world of Harry Potter ever since he started reading, was being given the chance to step into that world for real. "Yes," my father confirmed, nodding. "We've already made the reservations." He pulled out several tickets from his breast pocket and flashed them briefly. Linda, who had been sipping her coffee, chimed in. "That's wonderful. Tyler will be so happy." I caught something in her tone. Was it triumph? I shook off the thought, telling myself I was being paranoid. Tyler, who had been perched on my mother's lap, grinned through a mouthful of candy. "We're going to Universal," he cheered, bouncing excitedly. That evening, Ethan was the first to mark the date on the calendar. With a thick red marker, he circled the upcoming Saturday with eager determination. "Mom, only 6 days left," he exclaimed, his voice trembling with anticipation. At bedtime, as I was about to turn off the lights, he looked up at me hesitantly. "Mom, can I wear my Hogwarts robe over my pajamas tonight?" I chuckled, ruffling his hair. "Of course, sweetheart." And so began a nightly ritual. Every evening, he would fall asleep wearing his Universal Studios t-shirt, carefully practicing how he would pull out his ticket, an old passport holder, at the gates. He meticulously planned his itinerary, reading up on every ride and shop. "Mom, only 5 days left." "Mom, it's 4 days now." "The day after tomorrow." I began to hear his excitement even in his sleep, his quiet mumblings filled with phrases like, "I'm going to ride the Hogwarts Express. I'm going to buy a wand. I'm going to drink butterbeer." Michael watched our son with a soft smile. It's been a while since I've seen him this happy. At dinner, Ethan eagerly outlined his day at the park. "First, we go to platform 9 3/4, then to Diagon Alley. Did you know you can actually buy wands that cast spells?" His eyes sparkled with uncontained joy. The night before the trip, he barely slept, waking up repeatedly to check his packed bag. "Mom, wake me up early, okay? I don't want to be late." "Don't worry, sweetheart. Everything's ready." At exactly 6:00 a.m., he was already dressed, waiting by the door, his hair neatly combed, his Hogwarts t-shirt pristine. But as the clock ticked past 7:00 a.m., there was no sign of my parents. Ethan stared out the window, his hands clutching his bag. "Mom, why aren't Grandma and Grandpa here yet?" I forced a smile, though my stomach churned. "They'll be here soon. Maybe they're just stuck in traffic." A creeping unease settled in my chest. Then I called my mother. After a few rings, her voice answered. But in the background, I heard something chilling. Cheerful screams, laughter, and the unmistakable roar of a roller coaster. My blood ran cold. "I'm sorry, dear," my mother said casually. "We decided to take Tyler instead. There just wasn't enough room in the car." And just like that, my son's dream shattered before my eyes. A shattered dream. The silence that followed my mother's words was deafening. The background noise from the phone, laughter, cheerful screams, the distant roar of a roller coaster, felt like a knife twisting into my gut. We decided to take Tyler instead. There just wasn't enough room in the car. Her words echoed in my mind, detached, casual, as if she were discussing a minor change of plans rather than the complete and utter betrayal of a child's trust. The line went dead before I could even respond. For a moment, I stood frozen, the foam still pressed against my ear, my breath caught somewhere between disbelief and anger. It took a second for my brain to process what had just happened. Then behind me, I heard it, the sound that broke me. Ethan. A strangled, choked gasp escaped his lips, and then he collapsed onto the floor, his small hands clutching the fabric of his Hogwarts t-shirt like he was trying to hold onto something. Anything that could keep his dream from slipping away. His entire body trembled as sobs racked his frame, violent and uncontainable. My mother opened her mouth, but for the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. Michael reached for my hand, and we left. That evening, when we got home, Ethan was sitting on the couch, staring at the TV but not really watching. I sat down beside him. "Hey, sweetheart," I said softly. He looked at me, his blue eyes tired. "Did you talk to them?" I nodded. He hesitated. "Are they mad?" Michael, who had been standing near the doorway, walked over and knelt in front of Ethan. "No," he said simply. "But we told them the truth, and we told them we're not going back." Ethan blinked. "What do you mean?" I took his hands in mine. "It means we're done trying to be part of something that doesn't make us feel loved," I said gently. "We don't need them, sweetheart. You don't need them." His lip trembled. "But they're family." Michael gave a small, sad smile. "No, buddy. We're family. The people who love you, who show up for you, who would never hurt you like that. That's family." Ethan stared at us for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded, and something in his eyes shifted. Relief. Understanding. A weight lifting. That night, for the first time in a week, he pulled out his Harry Potter book again, and as he curled up on the couch, flipping through the pages with a small, contented smile, I realized something. This wasn't just the end of something painful. It was the beginning of something better. Something real. A life where love wasn't something that had to be earned. A life where he would never again have to wonder if he was enough. Because he was. He always had been. And he always would be. This concludes the story. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it enjoyable. If you did, please consider liking the video and sharing it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell for more captivating stories. Have a great day.